Hi.
Good morning. So I told her she has to do a really good job being quiet and letting me talk to you today because I'm super, super, super fired up for this interview. You want to sit in my lap? Okay, no talking. Um,
Real life, right? Real life.
I know, real life.
I
But
love
I'm
it.
so grateful. I know it's 7 a.m. where you are. Well, actually, that's one of the topics I want to start with. So, for anyone who doesn't know Christin, she is a real estate expert, a wealth expert, just such a accomplished woman. I have two future accomplished women on either side of me for this interview, apparently. And here's actually where I wanted to start. I mean, it really isn't that long ago that women could own property themselves. We know statistically that women are more likely to end up in debt. And I know that you work with everyone, not just women, but I want to hear a little bit of your career journey because I find it super inspiring. This is hot coffee. That you are a woman expert in real estate and in wealth because I feel like I want to know, how did you get started on that journey, you know?
You know what? I love that question. And I actually love the fact that there's not a ton of that yet because it inspires me to bring it more to women. I was actually just thinking about this morning. I'm working on a book draft, and that was one of the, inspiring questions to go forward on. And really, basically, as a kid, I grew up in a situation where, being your kiddo's age, looking around, and we were living in a single wide trailer park. My mom had roommates in order to pay the bills. So there was five of us living in a 2-bedroom single wide in a pretty crappy situation. That was on the good days. On the bad days through those years, I was actually living with a pretty abusive, dangerous stepfather who was at that time addicted to drugs. And I would look around me, and I remember waking up and going to school in the morning and feeling like, how come everybody else doesn't have this type of life? How come all my friends weren't up till 4 in the morning talking to police officers? Like, what is different about them and where I'm at? And then I also had a grandmother who, so my mom was working at a gas station, doing the best that she could, like honestly working harder than anybody I've ever met, but just not making any money. And therefore she would stay in these dangerous situations. And as kids, we were in these dangerous situations because she didn't have the financial means to get us out of them. When she got married, she felt like she couldn't leave an abusive situation because she didn't have the money to leave. She didn't have the money to put a safe home, roof over our heads or to take us to a safe space. And so I looked at this situation and I was like, I know this can't be right. And then I had a grandmother, on the other hand, who seemed to be this powerhouse that she would travel and she would take us with her and she would go to like exotic places that nobody could adventure or not very many people did. She had money to put the kids and the grandkids and the great grandkids through college. There was never, like looking at her from the outside, there was never a missed opportunity. There was this abundant life. And I'm like, well, she's a woman too. What's the difference between the two situations that I was watching? And what dawned on me is my grandmother, number one, looked for an opportunity to make the highest dollar amount in the least amount of time, which pushed her into real estate. She was raising children and living in a pretty rough situation herself. And she saw this opportunity to make the most money in the least amount of time. And that happened to be through sales. She got into sales, learned about investing, and then all of a sudden she realized that she could buy these assets that would pay her money. And so not only was it her making money with her job, but she was also had these assets that were also dumping money in. And I thought, oh my God, that is the key to helping provide safe homes to children, because if my mother would have understood that concept, we wouldn't have been in the situation that we were in. And so that kind of sparked this journey for me to, I will never be broke. I will never live paycheck to paycheck. I will never be dependent on somebody else's income in order for me to feel safe or to have opportunity. And that was kind of what lit the fire under me to like go down this path and learn everything I could about real estate.
That's an incredible story that I didn't know, but it also helps kind of explain for me. Like, one thing I've always really appreciated about your advice is that I think, one of the things I'm passionate about social audio is having access to experts who demystify things and explain them in a way that isn't scary. And like, I will never forget, I was like, Christin Kingsbury explained taxes in a way that was like interesting and exciting and made sense to me for the first time. So I'm so just inspired by your story because I think all of us sometimes feel like there are those barriers to entry, whether it's where we started or whether it's our understanding. So I would love to hear if that's kind of the catalyst that got you involved in real estate. Talk to me a little bit about how, here I am, it's a Monday morning, I tune into Fireside or I'm listening to the replay and I'm like, wow, like Christin became this amazing wealth expert despite, how she grew up. Tell me more about the journey of what it looks like for anyone to get involved in real estate, what you coach people on. So like, let's hear the next part of the story.
Sure. I would say the next part of the story is just really being an observer of people who are winning at it. And I watched her and I analyzed my grandmother, meaning her, like, what is she doing that is, and honestly, she wasn't doing anything that cost a ton of money. She wasn't doing anything that anybody couldn't do themselves. But I would observe and I would see that she would look for a property. And if she didn't have the money, she would simply ask the question, would you carry the note on it? Would you be the bank? And so she would take relationships and she would find opportunity through relationships. And so she would look around her and she would find somebody who needed to sell for some reason or another. And even if she didn't have the money to buy, she would say, well, I can make payments or I can put tenants in it to pay the bills. So why don't I just ask? And so a lot of times it was just simply not being afraid to have the conversation and to put herself out there. And so through life, I have found over the years, like if I just open my mouth and start the conversation, it's amazing the abundance that I can find and the opportunities that I can find. And honestly, the investments that I've made and the wealth that I've generated has often come by simply having a conversation, maybe with somebody I've never met in my life, sometimes just off of Facebook and getting to know about people and getting to know where they're at in their lives, what kind of pain they're in, what kind of pleasure they're seeking. Like, how can we solve people's problems? Because oftentimes people have a problem and it's centered around money. And you may not be the richest one in the room, but you might be able to buy the property from them and make the payments so that they can move on with their lives. Maybe they have to get out of a property for one reason or another. And so I just started looking around and saying, where do I see an opportunity? The other thing that I observed over the years is she was always looking for a property that she could improve upon, that she could add square footage, that she could make a little better without a ton of work. And so, like, for years, I thought, well, I mean, and not to sound silly, but the truth is I always thought, well, I need a man to do this, right? I can't do this by myself. I don't know how to do the flooring and the things. And honestly, if the numbers make sense, you can find a handyman to do it. You don't have to be married to the man that does it. The other thing is over the years, finding ways. I've split and developed land and put manufactured homes on because I don't know how to build the house, but I know how to make the phone calls that move the houses in, and I know how to bark and do the follow up and keep people on schedule and keep people on track. And so every time that I thought something was impossible, I would ask myself, but what if it's not? But what if you can? And I would literally just step out of my comfort zone when I would see this opportunity, and I would just do it in fear, truly, but calculated, taking calculated risks, never putting myself in so much risk that it would destroy my life if that failed. And then always having an exit strategy if something doesn't go the way that I think it's going to go, because oftentimes, like, you can't see all the pieces. So having an exit strategy before you go in has always been an important thing for me.
I love that mindset of almost kind of going right to the edge of the tipping point, saying like, I believe in myself that I'm going to get this done. I'm going to find the way to get it done. I'm going to hire someone. I'm going to build a relationship, but I'm not going to fall off the cliff. wow. I mean, that is definitely a motivational start to Monday. So my question is, if we get a little bit more granular and we get a little bit more tactical, I'm going to be like super vulnerable here for a minute, which is that like, I'm that classic, like totally intimidated by everything around wealth. So like I have a 401k, that kind of thing, but like I've never done anything really like outside of that I imagine people do. When you talk about real estate, you talk about wealth coaching, you talk about generational wealth and all of these things, I kind of like nod along. And then I'm like, all of this intimidates the hell out of me. So let's get granular for a minute and, you know, kind of move a little bit from your incredibly inspiring personal journey to like, if I'm someone in the room and I have a very basic understanding, like I want to make more money, I want to make smart choices, but I grew up in this super traditional, like the investment account that I have is a 401k. Like, what can I start doing to kind of learn some of these things, to shift my mindset and to grow into some of these things that you know so well?
So number one, I would start reading books and start watching and observing people, number one. Number two, I would start talking to the relationships around me that I already have about what have they done? Because what you'll find is many people have built wealth through real estate, and often it's the teacher next door. It's the idea that we how we label wealth is really interesting, because oftentimes we tie wealth to like people who drive fancy cars and do fancy things. And there's a book called The Millionaire Next Door. And, you know, you'd be surprised when you start digging around how your neighbor has built wealth through real estate, how your uncle has built wealth through real estate, how some of your friends have. So number one, getting into conversation with them and hearing their stories and their journeys and just studying and observing and soaking it up. But also in the meantime, thinking, okay, how's my credit look right now? What if I wanted to jump into this journey? What kind of money do I have saved? Or am I in debt and I need to get out of debt first? So you're kind of multifaceted. You are learning at the same time that you're having the conversations, because when they know you're interested, when they see an opportunity, they'll reach out and say, hey, Sara, I have this opportunity. You want to do this with me? Or you reach out when you find the opportunity and you say, hey, I don't know much about this, but I know that your journey has been successful. I see this opportunity. Would you be interested in going in on it with me? So learning, relationships, and then obviously the financial aspect of it is you don't have to be the one who has all the money, but it's not a bad idea to have decent credit so that people know they can bet on you if they put their finances, you know, if they're going to partner with you on something, they want to know that you're going to make wise financial decisions. You don't have a ton of debt. So maybe you start backing out of that if you have a lot of debt, or if you have, maybe you have no money saved. So maybe the first step is just starting to put money away, because right now in the real estate world, interest rates are still historically low, even though we say, oh my God, they went up this month. Yes, they did, but they're still incredibly low. Like most of what I've purchased has been at higher rates than we have right now over the years. And so we're still historically low. All you need is a down payment to get into a property. You can do a couple of things that are really simple. Number one, if you don't own the property that you live in now, you can purchase a property in which, and again, it comes back to what are you willing to sacrifice in order to build wealth for your family, right? So the first house that I bought, I had $10,000 saved. That was it. So I had $10,000. I'm like, okay, I want to buy a house. I don't know anything about buying a house. I walked into a model home on the in the top of the market when the prices were super high. And I bought this model home, and I didn't even have a job. So I had to have roommates, right? So we put roommates in it. The roommates paid the mortgage. I sold that house, I think 2 or 3 years later, and made better than $100,000. And the thing about real estate is, the trend is upward historically. Like we might have some gaps where we go down, but the downward trend, if you look historically, if you just hold on, it will go up. It's an upward trend. And so if maybe you're starting out and you buy a house that maybe is not the one you absolutely love, but the functionality, it has a place where you can have a roommate and they can be in a separate area, and it doesn't have to, disturb your way of living, yet it can pay your mortgage. So things like that gets you a leg up and gets you started fast. You can do something as simple as
Wait,
buy.
Kristen, I want to ask a salacious question.
Yes. Okay.
Because you had said earlier that, not too salacious, don't worry, we're sticking with real estate. You had said earlier that one of the ways that people, know that you're a smart bet is to kind of get your credit together, get your act together, all of that. But the salacious end of it is that we see, even though you talk about all these positive trends, in the news, people getting taken advantage of. Or we see, like, so my credit's together, but I picked the wrong partner. Please stop. Or we see the HGTV show where you're like, it doesn't have to be perfectly done. And where instead of like a little renovation, it's a quote unquote money pit. Yes. So before we continue on, like my question, because again, I'm getting excited, I'm getting fired up, but I've seen all of these things that like, well, I'm ready, but how do I keep myself from like picking the wrong person or the wrong property? What are some like really basic kind of tips?
So a couple of things. You should pick your partners based on core values. So that's a great great question, because when you go into business with anybody, it should be somebody that you can trust, somebody that you have some kind of background and relationship with. The other thing is, remember that the media gets paid to bring the views. So what you're seeing is so far from most average. I mean, you're talking, if there's 100 transactions of people buying investment properties, you're seeing the 1 in 100 or the 1 in 1,000, because that particular scenario is going to bring the highest viewers, So think about it this way: is if it destroyed everybody, it wouldn't be one of the greatest ways to build wealth that is most lucrative and kind of broad spread across audiences. So remember, you're watching the media, number one. Can those things happen? Absolutely, which is why I say always have the exit strategy, right? Like, okay, the numbers make sense. It looks like this one would rent, but I get into it and I lose my job. Okay, well, did you buy it for a decent price and not overpay for it, such that you can just turn around and sell it and you didn't lose anything? Can you make some kind of improvement such that if you decide not to keep it, you still didn't lose anything? So, I mean, number one, I would say, is you've got to buy it right. The profit, the income, the benefit side is on the purchase. You got to go chase kiddos. So basically, to answer
I just want to make sure she doesn't stick her leg to the balcony during
No, you're fine. Go chase kiddos. I get it. I totally chase kiddos.
She's good. They promised me they would watch Cocomelon during the show, and I want to be like, guys, it's Christin Kingsbury. Come on. But no, I super appreciate that about you. And that's a shared is that you understand you have little ones. And so it's like, we want to do both, right? We want to make sure they don't stick their foot through the balcony on spring break and serve the audience. Because here's the thing, like, and I really actually appreciate you saying that, because I think, again, like, I love debunking kind of these ideas that we have in our head that we don't even realize are preconceived notions. So I almost feel like if I was going to look for someone to partner with, I would be like, who made the most money? Not like who shares my core values. And that's a mindset shift that you're saying is going to serve you better in the end.
And here's the thing, you don't know who made the most money because they'll lie and tell you they made the most money. Like, one of the biggest things that drives me crazy in the wealth industry and wealth education is you've got people teaching about this who've never done it themselves. And there is not a good system for looking up and checking references, right? Like, so you might see somebody.
But is there anything people can do? So, like, for example, like, so Christin not only is listening to your content extraordinary, but I know that before you even got into wealth coaching, you have all of that expertise and those credentials in real estate at Keller Williams and so on and so forth. So I'm like, oh, she gets real estate. That's why she's coaching on, wealth and real estate investment. Like, what can people do to kind of check into the person who says, I'm going to coach you on the way to wealth. You want to invest with me? What can they do?
Tell me more about what you've done. Tell me more about the investments you own. Tell me how you got those investments. I would say you can pretty much, with a few questions, filter out a lot of people. But the thing is we've been our culture has been trained to think that it's taboo to ask about people's money. If you're coaching me on money, I should know that you're winning. And it is honestly one of the things that scares the crap out of me, is that people are coaching on wealth building and they haven't built any wealth. There's also a lot of, agents. You can't just go to a real estate agent and say, I want to buy an investment property, because guess what? They'll all raise their hand and tell you, I'll serve you. I'll find you an investment property. Ask them, how do they analyze their deals? Like, how do they know it's a good investment for you? Because the scary part is there's a lot of real estate agents that don't even own a home, and yet they're going to go build wealth for you. Be careful. Be careful.
That was really good. I like when you said, if you're going to coach me on wealth or help me in real estate, I should know that you are winning. I think that is really that's really salient for me. And I hope for everyone listening and watching the replay. So I want to talk a little bit about, because you do both. So you do real estate, you do real estate investing, and then you have these wealth coaching kind of programs and courses. Is that so? Talk to me about if I'm kind of, let's say I'm me and I'm kind of overwhelmed, right? Like, talk to me about kind of what I can expect in like a wealth kind of course or program or something that you teach, or working with a wealth coach. Like, what's a realistic expectation for that? Because I feel like I know if I work with a health coach or a personal trainer, what that looks like. But like you're saying, there's actually so much, candidly, it's a little bit like the Wizard of Oz. It's a little bit like meeting the wizard, that like, oh, you're going to work with a wealth coach and build generational wealth. Like, what I want to get behind the curtain.
Yeah. What does that look like? I've gone to some plenty of wealth building seminars myself. And I think one of the things that turned me off and that helped me to kind of create the design that I use is I've gone to them where they teach you a strategy and they just tell you enough to be dangerous. And I remember walking in to one of like an infamous platform where they were teaching and they were world renowned. And I remember walking in and raising my hand and saying, you cannot tell these people who have no education about this to go wrap notes and to go do these things without having more information. You're going to get them put in jail. And the guy basically told me, sit down, shut up. And I was like, this is not okay. And it scared me. And so honestly,
can I also take a moment? Let's get some clapping emojis in here. I love that you raised your hand and said that. Like, that's important. We need more people who are willing to do that. And I'm so grateful that you stood up and you did that. And continue the story.
So these people were saying, go get a credit card and sign up for my wealth coaching. And I thought to myself, and they even gave us the phone number for American Express Blue and told everybody, this is a $10,000 course. Go get the credit card. We'll teach you how to make more than $10,000. And I looked around at this room and I thought, the people in this room are here because they don't know how to do this. And you're number one, telling them just enough to get them in trouble. And then you're telling them to go get a credit card and pay for it. Like,
but I love that you're saying that, because it's such an interesting point. How many people say, well, like, are you willing to spend $1 to make two? And it is a little bit of a manipulative sales tactic to take people who don't have sometimes it's true, right? But then sometimes you're taking people who don't have the education, and you're just taking their money. So like, I'm really glad that you highlighted that. So, okay. So tell me.
Oh, it just made me cringe. And so anyway, so we went through this journey and I realized this is one of the top wealth building organizations in the country. And actually I've been to many of them that have done that. And I'm like, this is just flat out wrong. If you can't make it affordable to where people can get basic training, and yes, there needs to stair step. There's a point at which your education does cost you $10,000. It's a college education, but it doesn't go from 0 to 10,000. You know what I mean? So I started, and then the other thing is people don't have the capacity to step into that journey until they get a lot of their mindset right first, because you can't go from a mindset of, of lacking and I can't do this to here, let me give you $10,000 and I'm going to go make a bunch of money. There's some personal development along the way that needs to happen to shift your mindset so that you can get into it. And so I kind of take a different strategy about it. I start with like, what do you already believe to be true? Because honestly, it's probably wrong. So let's start there and let's fix those beliefs and what you experienced in the past. And like you were saying about HGTV and how they make it look, let's fix that. And then let's show you what to study. And then let's get you out there looking for opportunities and building relationships. And let's make sure your relationships are solid and not dangerous ones. And then let's get you moving into these opportunities. And so I've really built kind of a course that starts with what's in your head already and how do we change that to get you moving forward, but also a community where it's people I would do business with. So if you're in that community, I know if you partner across the community with each other, that you're in safe hands, that you guys are going to do well together and that, like we can analyze deals together. So I've built kind of what I feel is a safe space for people to learn, grow from wherever they are. Some of them are already going to be out there doing big things. Some of them are brand new to it. But here's the thing, when I was starting out, I didn't have anything to offer but my brains and my work ethic. And I would go into these deals and maybe I would partner with somebody who had done this 100 times or 1,000 times. And I would say, look, I don't have any money to offer you, but I will find the deals. I will make the phone calls. I will coordinate the contractors. I will show up at the inspections. I will do all the things and you be the money man. And this works. It works great. There's so many people out there. Actually, I saw Scott from Breakfast with Champions last night posted, hey, I've got the money, but I don't have the time to find the opportunity. Go find the opportunity for me. So all you do is you find people who are running fast and know the blessings that that passive income and building wealth brings. And you say, hey, Scott, here's a deal that I found. I don't know what to do. You do want to know what to do. You need to have some background and some knowledge. You need to read the books. You need to watch the courses. You need to talk to the relationships who've done it before you because you want to go look for the deals. When you find the deal and the numbers make sense, you just reach out to the guy like Scott and you say, hey, Scott, you said that you love this type of passive income opportunity. I think this is one. Would you take a look at it? I'd love to work with you on this. I'll do the legwork. And people like that are like, cool, I'll be the money man. You be the legwork. Let's put this together. And what happens, oftentimes that's set up like a we split the profit type situation. And then your profit starts to grow and you start to get your legs and you start to understand. And you also have a mentor on the other side of that transaction who's done it before you. And so they're watching, they're analyzing, they're helping you maneuver through it. And, after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deals, you're like, you not only have a pot of money that you've saved up to do your own and to be your own bank, but you also have a relationship and a mentorship that if you find other opportunities. And so you just look at the people around you and you might say, I don't have those people around me. I know you have those people around you, but in the let's say you don't have those people around you. Number one, I'll bet you do. I'll bet you do, and you're not thinking big enough because I would sit in a room and maybe my immediate family wasn't the opportunity partner, right? But maybe it was my college professor, or maybe it was somebody that I worked with. One of my greatest assets and one of the most beautiful humans who blessed my life was simply a lady who raised her hand and needed some work done at her house. And my husband showed up and we talked to them about what we were doing. We were borrowing money at 14% in order to build spec homes. And they were like, 14%, we'll charge you 6%. And they started funding our spec homes. And this is just some lady who made a phone call to us that needed our help on something else. So your relationships are all around you.
I mean, there are so many threads that I want to pull on there. First of all, it was super interesting to me, this example of Scott Simon saying that he would partner with people, and with you saying how you'd reach out to him. And I don't want to pass over the fact when you said, and you'd have a mentor, someone to reach out to in that transaction. Because I'm sitting there thinking, even if I read the books and the courses, if I have someone like Scott saying he's looking for a deal, I'm going to call you and I'm going to be like, Kristen, talk me through, like, what does this look like? How do we do this together? Because I think when you pull in the person who's experienced, so you don't miss something, like you're saying, it's so important um, when you go through that. And I also love what you were saying about thinking expansively about where those relationships are. And it goes back to what you were saying before. And also kind of this idea, like they say, don't count other people's money, like for better and for worse. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, don't assume that the person who is like, take my wealth class is winning. Like you said, do your due diligence, get off the balcony. That's not safe. This is real life right now.
No, I love it that
Also,
it's real life because this is what real estate
every
investing
time
looks
I'm
like
like
too.
really focused on you, she sticks her leg through the balcony, which is not allowed. And we're on the 10th floor. We like to keep it spicy and exciting here at Strategy with Sarah. What was I going to say? And right, don't count other people's money, but also the other way, don't discount people in your life. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, when people around you who are winning, don't think like, oh, why would I talk to the person who's in my book club about a deal? Or why would I talk to the mom at soccer practice? Or why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you reach out and have those connections and have those discussions? So two other things I want to mention at this point in the conversation. One, if you are listening today, this is interactive. Feel free to come up and ask Christin a question. She is one of my favorite humans to talk about anything financial with. Dancing by the edge of the balcony is also not an excellent idea. And the other thing that I want to ask you in the meantime, I know that you were saying that you start with mindset, and I love that, and with limiting beliefs. And so a question that I have that I would imagine a lot of people would have is like thinking that almost like you have to have a certain amount of money before you can get into doing this. I mean, you're saying look for the partners and so on and so forth. And so one of the questions that I have from a mindset perspective, because I know that you were saying that you overcame this hurdle, is like, if you just feel like I can't do it, I don't have it in me, I'm too busy, I have to be more successful in my lane of work, I don't have the money saved up yet, I can't. What's one way that someone can break through that kind of like I can't noise that you help people with in this field?
Yeah, I think with winning at anything, the question is, do you actually want to win at it? Because if you do, you will make the time. You will find the things in your life that you need to say no to in order to make the time to study, to learn, to look for deals. So the question is if you think that you don't have the time, my question for you is, what can you cut out of your life and say no to if it's actually a priority? What I find is a lot of people want to say they don't have the time and they can't. But it's actually more of a, you can do the things that you want to do. You can learn the things that you want to learn if you prioritize them. But maybe there's something in your life that you are currently saying yes to that would need to be a no in order for you to make the time.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think when you're saying when is it an excuse and when is it fear, right? So you're using all of those excuses as a crutch because it's like that quote that says like, are you actually more afraid to succeed than you are to fail? You know what I mean?
Well, and you know what? Stop making it about yourself, right? Like start making it about your girls. Start making it about the people around you. Danelle always says, who loses if I don't win? And when you get real on that, and you say, you know, who around me is going to be blessed because I got off my butt and I went scared and I did it scared and I moved the ball forward. Like, who's going to be blessed because of that? Because shame on you for being selfishly scared. Let's be brutal for a minute, right? Like your babies, and I'm just using you as an example because you're allowing me to use you as the guinea pig, but those babies will not have.
Oh my gosh, Kristen, you froze, and I don't know if it's you or if it's me. If you all can hear me, can you drop in the chat if it's me or if it's Kristen who froze? We are having all manner of
You
technical
have to
difficulties. Oh,
have
there you are.
financial means to be a blessing. Did I lose you?
I lost you for about 3 minutes, but you're totally back. And I just heard you say you
Oh,
have to have financial means to be a blessing.
yeah, like who is losing? Who is losing if you don't win, right? How do
Yeah.
your babies have the ability to travel? How do they learn to go be a blessing to others? I mean, how much more abundantly can you give if you have the means to do so? And so it's selfish, I think, for us to live small lives. And it's selfish of us to say, I can't, I don't have time. Like, make it a priority. I promise you, it's way more important than so many other things you're saying yes to.
I think that's super valuable. And again, one of the things that's been so interesting to me in this conversation is how often it's a mindset shift. So it's both doing your due diligence, getting the knowledge, but also shifting your mindset from, limiting beliefs to a growth mindset, from thinking about yourself to who you can bless. Absolutely not. Um, oh my goodness, this has been such
This is
I'm so
mom
grateful for you
life.
being on
This
this.
is
I'm
mom life.
so grateful for you being on this journey with me right now. It's a wild one. So I want to shift gears for a minute.
Hold on. Can I touch
Yeah,
on that for a minute?
yeah.
Because a lot of moms say, I can't do this. I have kids. There have been so many nights that my kids had a paintbrush in hand and we were sitting on the floor eating pizza because we were building wealth for the family. And so, like, this is not something that you do separate from your mom life. This is
Yeah.
something that you teach your kids. My kids now are like the hardest thing is going to be they're going to have to be entrepreneurs because they're never going to take an hourly wage when they realize, like my son already is like, when can we flip another house? When can we? And the idea that I've had the blessing to teach them growing up that they can buy things that pay them so that we can go on those vacations, so that we can live the lifestyle that we want, so that we can give to people when they need it. That is an incredible lesson to teach your kids. And you know what? They show up on the dirty floor and they get the paintbrush out and they take out the trash and they do the things. And they also see the work that goes alongside it so that they understand that money doesn't grow on trees and they have to go earn it, but they know to focus on the highest dollar productive activities. It's a good one.
I love that. I think that's such salient advice. It's funny too because they're very strong-willed, and I always refer to them as future CEOs because they are. They know their mind. And I'm so grateful for you and for this environment. I think on this point, it looks different, kind of saying you support working moms and actually supporting working moms. I mean, like, it's all right. We're gonna roll with it. The interview is gonna be a little. We'll work with the sound on the back end. Guys, please, if you're going to be doing silly stuff like that, if you go inside, it would mean so much to me. So I wanted to ask you, I don't think it's a coincidence that I scheduled you for this week of April, because as I said, you did a segment on taxes over the summer that I'll never forget because really that's another thing we're like, okay, I'm getting super honest with you because we're close. Like another terrible financial habit I have is that like I'm an avoider. Like I just everything about money makes me uncomfortable. We can delve into all of that later. So for example, like for me, I feel like the only time when I'm really focused on my taxes is like every time that I have to be, right? Like when quarterly taxes are due this time of year, I kind of do so maybe like 4 times a year, like I check in, I actually know what's going on. The rest of the time I make sure the bills are paid and the invoices are going out. But I like everything about taxes. Like I would never want to like sit down and think about everything around taxes that can be financially beneficial to me. So I would love to take a few minutes because again, like just the mindset that you shared in that segment about everything that we can kind of think about around our taxes and how we can almost be empowered in some way, again, in a wealth generation kind of mindset. I'd love to touch on that for a little bit.
So that started with me because I hated taxes. I like the thought of giving my money away to the government for the things that I hated taxes. And, but I also was curious because I understood that the money has to flow through an economy in order to keep things moving. There was rules to these taxes, and it was to fund things that were important, and it was to make money flow through communities. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I just don't understand them well enough. And then I also, growing up watching my grandmother would say, number one, she would employ family members because she's going to give them money anyways. They need the money for whatever it is that they're doing. So she would employ them because then it was tax deductible because she was paying for work, right? And so she would find ways to employ family members. We would go, I remember when I was about, 5 or 6, going to Hawaii. And I remember the whole family coming. She had all the family involved in the business. And I remember going to Hawaii, having a great vacation, stopping everywhere we would go. We would look at real estate. We would talk to realtors. We would stop into offices. We would see what the market was doing. And it was a little bit annoying as a kid because I didn't understand it. But later I realized she was deducting so much of the cost of our trip, the cost of our stay, the places that we went, by having the conversations about real estate, connecting with referral partners, looking for investment opportunities. She then later showed me the way of like buying properties wherever it is that you want to go visit. Buy a property there, make it pay for itself. And then not only do you have a place that you can pop over with your family and enjoy, but you also have it paying for itself. So you don't have to be, you don't have to be the financial means to it. And so when I would watch this, I'm like, oh my gosh, all of these things that she's doing, these meals, these trips, the gas money, the cell phone, the home office, all of these, she's reducing the money that she gives to the government by tracking these things. And so I became very curious. And there is a really wonderful book called Tax Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. And I was introduced to that book. And there's some genius ways to involve your kids, to just really, design life the way that you want it to look, and then go adventure, go travel, and take those tax deductions. This summer, we own a mobile home park, and we look and invest in, RV parks, mobile home parks. And so I was like, you know what? I really want to go to Mount Rushmore. That's a bucket list travel trip for me. And so along the way, we made sure to stay at all of these different RV mobile home park type places to where we could study what they were doing, see if they were profitable, move on to the next, and really see what was going on. And then I met with, I spoke with one of the head of KOA to learn about their franchise and things like that. And I'm genuinely curious. These people provide great vacation opportunities for people. They seem to be generating revenue in all these different places. And so by doing this and by looking for these investments and getting this education along the way, my family Mount Rushmore trip, much of it is a tax deduction, like how cool is that? And there's just the RV that you're traveling in, there's just so much. And if you have a really good tax accountant, which you always need to lean on them, because I am not a tax professional, I lean on my tax professional and I say, okay, what of this can we deduct and how can we reduce the money that we're going to give to the government? And, at the same time, these rules are not meant to, the reason that the government writes these tax laws is because they want you to flow money that way. And then they reduce how much they're taking from you because you flowed your money the way that they wanted you to. So like 6,000 pound vehicles last year that you could depreciate in 1 year. They wanted you to spend money on those things. And so therefore they gave you the incentive to do so. So I stopped looking at taxes as like, oh, gross. And I started looking at them as kind of a game of how can I reduce the money I give to the government by playing their game and following their rules. And for them, they flow money through the economy the way that they want it. And for me, I get the benefit of not having to write so big of a check.
I love that. And again, like thematically for me, what's so empowering about this episode that we're doing together, and like the common thread that I'm seeing kind of from where we started, there's so much mindset. And it makes sense when I think about it, because as I said, like so many of the words that I use as excuses or that we hear as common excuses are all mindset based. I'm afraid, I'm not ready, I don't like it. Like it's never even excuses around like, well, do I have enough money? Do I have enough experience? Those are all tied back to mindset. So the fact of saying like, instead of thinking, ew, gross taxes, I'm going to think of it as a game. I honestly, like, this is the first time that I'm really putting together how interrelated mindset and these kind of, success points for wealth are, which is really incredible. It's extraordinary to me, these stories that you keep telling about your grandmother, because as I said, and as we started at the beginning, when we think about how hard it was for women 2 generations ago to own property to work to be like a financial badass. Like, she sounds really cool. Like, that's incredible.
She is a badass. She's 96 now and she just bought a property, another project like a week ago. She still does not stop. It keeps her going. And there's a lot of things I've learned. And then you also look at your mentors and you say, okay, what would I do differently? So you learn and you grow along the way. Something that I would suggest for everybody that is really risk free but will educate you is there's a game called Cash Flow that teaches you, it's kind of like Monopoly. It teaches you how to generate passive income, how to invest in real estate. And it's my kids absolutely love it. And
I'm like, I want to go buy this. Can I play this
so,
with the kids?
yes, the kids love it. You can buy it as a board game, or you can also buy it. You can buy it like I think there's an app that you can play online. But actually, Sharon Lechter created it with Robert Kiyosaki, and so this game, you can just go practice. It gives you the opportunity to buy things and do the math and make sure they cash flow and make sure you have equity and all of these things. And like the goal of it is to generate enough passive income that it supersedes your bills and then you're out of the rat race, right? So then you're living for free. And that's a great way to kind of dig in and start playing with it if it's completely foreign to you and you just want to play without risk.
I mean, I didn't even know something like that existed. You know what I mean?
So fun.
That's one of the things that I love about conversations like this. So for my benefit, we've kept this kind of very like bare bones, low barrier to entry. As I said, anyone who's listening, if you want to jump up and ask a question, you can. But I also want to ask, so it's applicable to everyone listening to the replay. Let's say that I've had a little bit of success. I've done some of these strategies. I have the right mindset. Maybe I have a property. So like I've been really kind of focusing a lot of the call on starting the journey. Let's say I found some success in passive income. What do I do to kind of look around and level up? Like I have the relationships, I have the mindset. If we've gone from here to here, how do I go from here to here?
Good question. My first suggestion is look at your relationships and top grade your relationships, because when you put people around you, so maybe you've grown to the level of the guy who owns one property. Awesome. Who do you know that owns 50 properties? And so like for myself, I have mentors and friends around that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate. And that was not always the case. At one point, most of my friends didn't own anything. Maybe they owned one. So you need to keep top grading your relationships in order to challenge yourself and to watch and observe the next level. Start moving toward what they're doing. The other thing is to realize like real estate outpaces inflation. And right now, if you have money sitting in the bank, it's dwindling and becoming worth less and less and less and less and less. And so like get the urgency behind you that interest rates are low. Real estate is the thing that outpaces inflation. So instead of your money becoming less and less and less and less, it's becoming more and more and more. And honestly, keep reading your books. Surround yourself by people. I can't say enough about putting people around you that are doing it bigger, better, faster than you, because you'll look around and you'll be like, can't get lazy. Keep going, keep going, keep going,
Yeah.
So, and honestly, we get busy in our lives and we say, oh, I'm too busy, I can't. Shame on you for being too busy to make your family and your future and generations beyond you a priority. You have to time block looking for the investments, studying the market, reading the books. Anything that you want to get good at, you have to make time for. And so sometimes we don't make time until we're in pain, right? We don't go learn, we don't go look for resources until we're in pain. Well, I hope you don't wait till you're in pain to figure this out. Like prioritize it now and make the time for it. It needs to be, when I look at the condition of our country and of the debt that people are in, when I look at marriages, dissolving and falling apart, when I look at abusive households, and so much of it is always tied to money, we all have a responsibility not only to learn about money ourselves, but to teach our children about it, to break generational curses by teaching our children how to make money, how to manage money, and how to be good stewards of money and bless people who need opportunities outside of us, because we've all been or will be at some point in our life the recipient of somebody who did it before us, somebody who had it because they made it a
Yeah.
priority. So it's our responsibility.
I love that. And that's actually one of my favorite questions because one of the things that's so interesting to me is that I actually think a lot of the things that we're afraid of as adults, it's because they weren't explained to us in an age appropriate way, like throughout our lives. So when you're talking about sharing with kids, we talked about the cash flow game. We talked about the fact that you take your kids with you to the properties to hold the paintbrush, which is amazing. But talk to me about maybe a few different things that parents can do at a few different ages to introduce their children to money and wealth in a positive way. Is it like full transparency? Is it, sitting down and setting a family budget? Is it, because I also feel like, I don't know. I mean, like, I think that there's talking about it and then there's doing. So like, I'll tell you, for example, I think there's the kind of like we talk about giving our kids an allowance, right? And talking to them about earning the money and things like that versus again, like, so how much is it is kind of coming up with something like for them versus talking about here's what's going on in our family kind of thing.
Gosh, I have a tendency to feel like it's full transparency. Like it's okay for them to see you fall because when you fall, guess what? They learn it's okay to fall and that part of succeeding is failing. It makes them not afraid. I'm a big advocate of like these are really silly, simple things. But if we go to dinner and my children don't eat their dinner, the rule is they pay for it because money doesn't grow on trees. And if you're going to waste my money, then I think, and you know what? I've even started doing the same thing around the house. I'm like, hey, if I have to pick up after your mess, then I'm clearly the maid and you need to pay me. And so of the money that they earn, they get to pay me back if they don't do their job.
Yeah.
Also, school is their job. Getting good grades is their job. So their report cards, and what I've really worked to try to teach them is not all jobs pay the same. You're not going to get if you go do a higher value activity, you're going to receive a higher pay for that. And so we teach them oftentimes that all the jobs around the house are not the same either, and focus on the highest dollar productive activities if you're trying to save for something that's expensive. And at the same time, be mindful to manage your life and do your job, or else you're paying somebody else to do it, and that's reducing your income. But as far as cash flow and that game, my kids love to beat me. It's their favorite thing to buy better real estate investments than I buy, and to make more money. Let them win. Let them play and strategize. But they have to see you studying. They have to hear you having the conversations. They have to see you actually doing, or else, like you say, it's all lip service.
I love that so much. And I love the advice too that it's okay for them to see you fall and get back up again because they think, again, like quote unquote traditional notions of parenting. I think we're just like tell the kids everything's fine, everything's fine, and they'll figure it all out when they're an adult.
No.
And so, yeah, no,
You
I love
rob them
that.
of the opportunity to learn the lesson when you hide it from them.
Yeah, I think that that is super, super powerful. Oh my gosh, there was something else you said, and I was going to ask you a question. I'm trying to remember what it was, and then we got onto the topic of kids, and I was like, yes, 100%. I guess one question I have for you, we'll stick with that for a moment, is I mean, do you already foresee, and forgive me, I can't remember how old your kids are, but that once they're adults, that they'll be investing with you in properties and like, are they gonna, are they gonna be real estate agents like mom, or are they just gonna have properties? Or like, is that something that they talk about, that they're excited about, that they're thinking about, or that you would encourage them to do? Or are you just kind of like, I want to expose them to it so they have the knowledge?
So I'm exposing them to the idea that you don't have to trade your time for money, because oftentimes your job will never pay you enough to get you to an abundant life, right? So as I expose that to them, the other thing I want to expose them to, or the reality I want to expose them to, is nothing is given to them. They can earn and receive. I've seen a lot of really negative things happen from building wealth. It's not all the positive things. There can be devastating family, um, you know, they say that the third generation of family members loses all the wealth, and it's because they weren't taught the process along the way. And I've seen very negative things happen because of building wealth. And that's also a limiting belief around, some people will not go build wealth because they have it tied to this negative idea or a negative experience. So my kids, I show them that sales is a high dollar producing activity, and that it pays better than a lot of things. So for that, like, my daughter is like, Mom, I'm going to do real estate with you. I don't care whether she does or not. I just want her to look what makes her the highest dollar amount and the least amount of time, such that she can have time and money to go bless other people where she's passionate. So will they own investment properties? I certainly think that they will. Will they own the ones that we've bought as a family? Probably, if they manage their money well and show me that they're responsible over time. If not, I'm happy to give them to somebody who deserves them, or to leave them, to a charity or something like that. Will they do the same things that we've done? Maybe, because it's where their experience is, but I'm certainly not opposed. Whatever it is that they love, I want them to do that, but I want them to understand that having money is not negative. Having money gives you the ability to bless more people. Like, it gives you the ability to be a brighter light, to lift people up. And so I do want to encourage them, whatever it is that they do, to focus on highest dollar productive activities, such that they're not living like we were living, where we're dependent on an abusive relationship because there's money involved, where we're living in places where there's drugs and crime because we can't afford to get out. I want to make sure that I educate them in a way that they move away from that and understand that money does matter. It allows opportunity.
I mean, that everything you said is so powerful there. And it's interesting to me too when you mentioned that statistic around the loss of wealth between generations and how often it's lost by a third generation, because it goes back also to what you were saying to me earlier in this conversation around core values. Because I did some communications work for a wealth management firm years ago, and they were working with very high net worth families. And you're exactly right. One of the things that they were doing was bringing the different generations together, for the generation who created the wealth to share their values, to explain what they think about money and how they spend money, where they spend it. Because as you're saying, there is a fear also that if you give money to children and they don't have that full mindset of earning it and understanding it, they'll never understand the value around the creation and therefore being good stewards of it. So I think that's a super powerful, like, kind of concluding note, because we talk about generational wealth and we just talked about bringing it down through generations. So Christin, I can't tell you how excited I am that you joined me today. I always learn so much from you. You were so gracious with me parenting through this entire hour. But I want to make sure that everyone watching and everyone watching or listening to the replay knows where they can find you, how they can work with you, how they can learn more from you, because you are incredible.
I appreciate it. And I love that you played mommy the entire time, because when we run from real life, we're giving an unrealistic expectation, right? Like, this is real life. I'm surprised mine didn't come down here to talk to me in the middle of this. They generally do. But no, getsomaassets.com, because I am passionate about helping you get assets so that they can pay you. So getsomaassets.com will get you to me. Getsomaassets@gmail.com gets you to my email. You can find me on Clubhouse. This is my first fireside. Who knows if it's my first or last? I'm not sure yet. This is all new to me. So this is fun, and I appreciate the opportunity. This has been super fun. I miss you, and it's wonderful to connect with you. And I hope that you guys have an amazing vacation.
They're like, that was over. Thank you so much, Christin. You are the best. I would love to have you back sometime when these babies are in school. So we'll definitely part two this. You're not a baby. This baby and this big girl. Thank you, cutie. When they are in school, so that I can fully focus. Thank you so much for your time today. You were incredible. Everyone, go check out Get Some